Hey everyone, welcome to this week's video. I want to start this week's video out a little differently than I have the last few. I was having a conversation the other day about my hopes for this channel and how it be a conversation that we start in our community about things that matter to us. And one of the things that I realized in that conversation is that I haven't made these videos where they are a really natural invitation to start conversations. And so I want to be really intentional about doing that. And so I'm going to try to do that this week, and hopefully we can really start having a conversation about some of these topics. And thinking about the idea of having conversations and not like wrapping things up neatly in every video, I started thinking about a conversation that I had with a clinical supervisor of mine a few years ago. So a clinical supervisor, for those who don't know, is someone that as a therapist you work with to meet at various times and kind of talk about clients that you're working with and things that maybe are difficult or things that stump you. And it's a clinical professional relationship to get some different ideas on how to work with things that feel difficult. And I was talking about how I was having a hard time wrapping sessions up, and that it felt nice, when I was able to kind of wrap everything up and put a nice neat little bow on it at the end of the session. And I remember my supervisor told me at that time, he's like, you have to be careful when you do that, because if you do that all the time, people are going to start thinking you're an asshole. And it's totally true, and it really resonated with me. And so that's not what I want to do with these videos. I want them to not be me presenting a subject and then having that all wrapped up and packaged and delivered, but me delivering and kicking off a conversation and some ideas and perspectives that I have as a gay man, as a therapist, as a coach. I want to deliver some of those perspectives, put them out there, and then have you guys jump in with your experience, because I know that in our community there's a lot of wisdom out there, there's a lot of experience, and I really want us to share that with one another. So all of that being said, let's get this week started. So I was on a run the other day in Central Park, and when I run in Central Park, I usually run around the kind of perimeter of the park. For those of you who haven't been in the park, there's a large road that kind of runs around. It's the inside of Central Park, but it's around the perimeter. And so I've usually run that, and I run it for a few reasons. I've run it because, it's predictable. I know what's there. I know what I'm going to get. I know where the hills are. And I know exactly how far it is. And something that's occurred to me as I see all these beautiful trails that go off in Central Park is that, I could be missing out on what's going on down those trails. So this last run I took in Central Park, I decided to start exploring some of those trails. And, while I did run into dead ends and really difficult unexpected hills and loops that led back around to the same place, I also got to experience all these different parts of the park and all these different rich experiences that I had never experienced before in all my times in Central Park. And so it kind of started me thinking, because at the time I was reading Michelle Obama's book, Becoming, and it made me think of this idea that she presents in the book that she calls swerving. So she calls it when we're kind of on a certain path in our life and we come to crossroads, or we come to where we have a decision where we can stay the course or when we can swerve and do something new. And she talked about kind of earlier in her life how maybe there were some of those that she missed, some of those swerves that she missed because she was so focused on doing what was expected of her and being dutiful, and how part of her becoming was learning to listen to herself and learning to know when to swerve and when to stay the course. So I started thinking about that, like, how do we know when to swerve and how do we know when to stay the course? And I started thinking about my own life, and then I started thinking about experience that I have from working with clients and what works well for us. And I thought of a few different things. So I think one of the first important things to do is to get clear on what is important to us. And when I say what's important to us, I mean to us personally and not our parents or society or our community. Because I think we're all pretty clear on what those things are. We're really inundated with those messages. And what's important is to sort out what in there is ours and what in there is other people's. What do we want to keep and what do we want to let go by the side? The second thing we can look at is, what are the limiting beliefs that I might have that hold me back from doing the things that I want to do? What are those beliefs of maybe like fear or scarcity that keep us in the status quo and keep us from swerving or making a decision that's really based on what we want and not what society wants or our family wants or what raises our status and how we're perceived? The third thing that I think that is important, has been important for me personally, and I see work really well in other people's lives, is some kind of contemplative practice where we are working on shifting our relationship with our thoughts so that we can notice our thoughts as thoughts instead of taking them as reality. So that can look like meditation, it can look like prayer, it can look like yoga. I think really anything that builds mindfulness for us. So we can build mindfulness in exercise, we can build it in cooking and things that we enjoy. If we're being aware of thoughts that are coming up and then being able to be present and centered and not carried away in those thoughts. Because what that allows for us to do is notice when these thoughts come up and be able to hold them and see if those are thoughts that are ours and that are based on what's important to us, or if they are thoughts that maybe we absorbed when we were younger or we've taken on from society or advertising or our community. And when we can kind of start to see the difference between those thoughts, what's ours and what's not ours, then that helps us make that decision on, when we should take a risk and go for something that we really want, or when we should stay the course. So now I'd like to hear from you guys. What's the process been like in getting to know what is important to you? And in that process, how have you discovered limiting beliefs, and what have you done with those limiting beliefs? And what practices have been helpful for you to know yourself and be able to build trust in yourself to make these kinds of decisions? So I'm looking forward to hearing from everybody. If you're enjoying these videos, please subscribe. And if you click on the little bell that's next to the subscribe button, then it will notify you anytime new videos come out. I'm really glad you guys joined me today. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Take great care.